He woke up early that morning, as he always did. The sun had barely begun to rise, painting the sky in pale oranges and soft pinks. He moved quietly through the house, careful not to wake anyone. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen as he poured himself a cup and leaned against the counter, staring out the window at the empty street. It was a calm town, the kind where everyone knew each other, and nothing much ever seemed to happen. He liked it that way, liked the quiet. Across town, his brother was already up and running through a different kind of morning. His life had never been ordinary. While one brother spent his days in peace, fixing things and helping people, the other had chosen a path that was the exact opposite. The army had always called him, ever since he was young, and he had answered without hesitation. Training had been harsh, missions dangerous, and yet he never wavered. Discipline and focus were his second nature, and he had become the kind of person who moved silently through the world, always observing, always planning, despite living such different lives. The brothers shared a bond that was unbreakable. They had grown up together, twins who understood each other in ways nobody else could. When they were kids, they would spend hours exploring the woods behind their house, racing each other through the trees and dreaming about adventures they would never have. They had promises back then, silly little promises to always protect each other no matter what. And even as adults, those promises had never faded. The brother in the quiet town had a simple routine. He worked in a small repair shop, fixing cars and helping people with their problems. He was friendly, patient, and the kind of man people trusted without thinking twice. The townspeople liked him not because he was extraordinary, but because he was dependable. He never caused trouble, and he always found a way to make life a little easier for someone else. That was his way of making a difference, quietly, without fanfare. His brother, the soldier, was on the other side of the world. Every day for him was a test, a mission, a challenge that required every bit of strength and skill he had. He had learned to survive in the harshest conditions, to stay calm when others panicked, and to act decisively when every second counted. His world was one of strategy and risk, of life and death decisions made in moments. But even in the chaos, he carried a piece of home with him, a memory of the brother who waited quietly for him, someone he wanted to see safe above all else. That morning, both brothers were unaware of how closely their worlds would collide soon. The day began innocently enough. The quiet brother finished his coffee and headed to work, waving to neighbors who were starting their own mornings. He didn't notice the small things that could signal trouble, things that would later make sense only in hindsight. Everything seemed normal, ordinary, safe. Meanwhile, the soldier was finishing a briefing with his team, packing equipment, and preparing for a routine mission. Even routine missions carried risks, but he trusted his training and experience. He thought about home, about the town he hadn't seen in months, and the brother he missed more than he could ever say. That thought lingered in the back of his mind, a reminder of why he kept going, why he survived, and why he hoped to return to the quiet life he had left behind. Back in town, life went on. People moved through their routines, children laughed on the streets, and small shops opened their doors for the day. The quiet brother worked diligently, helping customers, fixing cars, and chatting politely with anyone who walked in. It was an ordinary day, but there was a tension in the air that nobody could see yet. Small things unnoticed were beginning to line up like dominoes, ready to fall. He paused for a moment to check a car engine, wiping sweat from his forehead. The shop was peaceful, but outside a disturbance was beginning to unfold. A few blocks away, a commotion had started. Someone had caused trouble, someone who looked remarkably like him. Witnesses saw him from a distance, and assumptions were made. It was a mistake, a wrong place, wrong time scenario, but in those moments the consequences were unpredictable. Lives could be changed in seconds, and no one yet understood how close they were to disaster. The soldier received a call during a break. It was from a family friend, someone he trusted completely. They spoke in hushed tones, the kind reserved for emergencies. What he heard made his heart sink. His brother, his twin, had been caught up in something he didn't do. He had been mistaken for someone else and was now in danger. The words were like a shockwave, splitting his calm and professional exterior. He didn't hesitate. He packed what he needed, informed his team, and arranged emergency leave. Every decision was precise, calculated, because he knew the stakes were high. At the repair shop, the quiet brother continued unaware. He chatted with a customer, laughing softly, fixing a stubborn engine part. Then he noticed unusual activity outside. There were flashing lights, voices calling his name, and people running. His first thought was confusion. His second was fear. He stepped outside, hands raised, trying to explain, trying to make sense of the situation. But the chaos had already started. Misunderstandings escalated quickly. Mistakes were being made. The ordinary morning had turned into a nightmare. Neighbors came out to watch, some worried, some curious. They didn't know what was happening, only that something had gone terribly wrong. The quiet brother's voice shook as he tried to talk to authorities, trying to convince them he was not the person they were looking for. But fear, stress, and the appearance of the situation clouded judgment. The officers had orders, and in the confusion, they followed them, taking him away without fully understanding. He struggled, confusion and pain mixing, and the last thing he saw before being taken was the faces of people he knew. Filled with shock, the soldier was on his way home. Heart racing, mind analyzing every possible scenario. He replayed the call in his head, imagining the worst and preparing for it. Every skill he had learned, every mission he had survived, was now focused on protecting the one person who mattered most. He thought about their childhood, about promises made, about laughter and late-night talks. Those memories gave him strength. They reminded him why he would stop at nothing to reach his brother. Time passed slowly for the quiet brother. The world around him felt surreal. He was in a hospital, surrounded by people speaking quickly, moving efficiently, but none of it made sense. He didn't understand why this was happening. He only knew that he wanted to be home, wanted everything to be normal again. He held on to small thoughts, memories of his brother, of their shared past, of promises and laughter, clinging to them as if they were lifelines. Outside the hospital, the soldier arrived, calm but determined. He moved with a purpose, each step measured, eyes scanning, observing, planning. He checked in with staff, gathered information, and slowly pieced together what had happened. His presence alone commanded attention. He did not raise his voice or threaten anyone. He simply existed with the authority of someone who had survived the impossible. Someone who knew exactly how to handle crises. He spent hours gathering facts, talking to people, making sure every detail was correct. Nothing was left to chance. The world around him moved quickly, but his focus was unwavering. He thought about his brother's safety above all else. Every decision was deliberate, every action purposeful. The stakes were higher than anything he had faced on a battlefield. This was personal. This was family. Back in his hospital bed, the quiet brother began to regain consciousness. He could hear voices, calm but firm, guiding him, ensuring he was safe. He opened his eyes and saw the soldier standing nearby. Relief washed over him, unspoken words passing between them. The bond they shared was evident in that silent moment. No explanation was needed. They understood each other completely. As night fell over the town, the two brothers sat together, one recovering from confusion and injury, the other prepared to do whatever it took to protect him. Outside, life went on as usual, unaware of the storm that had passed through the quiet streets that day. But inside, a new understanding had formed. Strength wasn't just about training or skill. It was about love, loyalty, and the willingness to step forward. When someone you care about was in danger, the day that began like any other had ended with lessons learned, bonds reinforced, and the reminder that even ordinary lives could face extraordinary challenges. The quiet brother knew he was safe now, but he also knew how close things had come to disaster. And the soldier, trained for conflict and danger, understood that some missions were far more personal than anything in a combat zone. Protecting family was the mission that mattered most. And nothing would ever change that. Morning would come again, and life would try to return to normal. But the memory of that day, the fear, the confusion, and the unwavering presence of a brother who would stop at nothing would never be forgotten. In the quiet town, 2 lives, 2 paths, and 1 unbreakable bond had been tested. And the outcome had proven the power of loyalty, courage, and love. And so, even in the calm after chaos, they remained connected. Twin souls who understood each other in ways nobody else could, ready for whatever the future might bring. The morning that had started peacefully soon turned into a confusing whirlwind for the quiet brother. He had gone to work as usual, unaware of the chain of events that had begun just a few blocks away. People had seen someone who looked exactly like him acting suspiciously, and in the heat of the moment, assumptions were made. Witnesses pointed fingers, and by the time authorities arrived, the quiet town had been thrust into unexpected chaos. The quiet brother had always lived by simple rules: keep calm, help others, and try not to make waves. But that day, everything he believed about the safety of his life was thrown into question. He stepped outside his shop, curious at first, seeing people pointing and shouting. He didn't immediately understand what was happening, only that something was wrong. When officers approached, he raised his hands, trying to communicate, to explain that there had been a mistake. He told them calmly that he had done nothing wrong. But in the confusion, his words didn't seem to matter. The officers were tense, voices raised, worried that the man in front of them was the suspect they had been told to find. They acted according to protocol, trying to control the situation. And in their eyes, they were protecting the town. The quiet brother's calm demeanor, his protests, even his explanation of having a twin, did little to change their minds. Stress and fear clouded the judgment of everyone around. Turning an ordinary morning into a tense standoff, he tried to reason with them, pointing out small details, offering evidence, even suggesting they check records or ask neighbors. But everything seemed to fall on deaf ears. Every attempt he made to clarify the mistake only added to the tension. As bystanders grew anxious and the scene became more chaotic, his heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the frustration of being unable to make people understand something so simple. Inside, panic began to rise. He had always been careful, had never been in trouble, and had always trusted the world to be reasonable. But the world now seemed distant, unpredictable. People he had known all his life looked at him with uncertainty, and even the officers who had sworn to keep everyone safe were acting as if he were a threat. The quiet brother could feel the fear and misunderstanding building around him like a storm cloud, pressing down, suffocating. Meanwhile, across the country, his twin was receiving information that made the blood in his veins run cold. He had just been told that his brother had been taken by mistake. His mind raced through scenarios, analyzing every possibility, weighing every decision. The disciplined calm he was known for in the military was there, but beneath it, there was anger, fear, and determination. This was not a drill. This was his brother. This was personal. He contacted his unit immediately, explaining the situation and requesting emergency leave. The response was fast, and he was approved to return home as quickly as possible. Every detail of the journey was meticulously planned. Flights, transportation, timing, everything had to be precise. He didn't waste a second. As he moved, he thought about what he would find, about the state his brother might be in, about the chaos that had begun in the quiet town. Each thought strengthened his resolve to act swiftly and wisely. Back in town, the quiet brother was being guided into a police vehicle, still trying to explain himself. He wasn't resisting aggressively. He simply wanted to be understood. The officers, operating under stress and misinformation, maintained control. He could hear voices from neighbors, snippets of conversations, questions, whispers, and exclamations, but nothing could change the fact that he was being taken. Every mile he was driven away, the tension increased. His thoughts returned to his twin, wishing he could be there, wishing someone could understand and recognize the mistake. The quiet brother's mind flashed back to his childhood with his twin. He remembered the long summer days, the secret hiding spots in the woods, the promises to always protect each other. Those memories became anchors in the middle of confusion. He reminded himself that even now, The bond they shared could not be broken by misunderstanding or fear. He drew strength from it, holding on to it as if it were a shield against the stress and pain of the present moment. The officers, meanwhile, followed their protocol as best they could. They did not realize the human story unfolding before them. In their minds, the right course of action was to secure the individual quickly, to ensure that no further danger occurred. They acted with intention, believing they were doing their duty. Yet, the quiet brother's calm persistence and the occasional recognition from a passerby that a mistake had been made planted seeds of doubt. The situation teetered between resolution and escalation. Hours passed slowly. The quiet brother was taken to a local hospital after a minor struggle left him bruised and shaken. Medical staff moved quickly, checking him over, ensuring he was physically unharmed. Yet the psychological toll was evident. He was frightened, confused, and exhausted. He tried to explain again, speaking through the fear and pain, but clarity was difficult to convey. The hospital became a temporary safe space, a place where the chaos outside slowed for just a moment. Meanwhile, his twin arrived in town, his presence commanding attention even before he spoke. Military training had taught him to read situations quickly, to assess risks, and act decisively. He moved through the hospital with quiet authority, asking questions, gathering facts, and assessing the environment. Every word, every gesture was deliberate. He was calm, but there was an intensity in his eyes that left no doubt about his purpose. He was there to protect his brother, and nothing else mattered. He spoke with staff, clarifying details, checking the timeline, and piecing together what had happened. He asked questions with precision, never raising his voice, yet everyone in the room felt the gravity of his presence. He was a professional, a soldier, a man who had faced life-or-death situations countless times. Yet the personal nature of this mission, protecting his twin, gave him a focus unlike any he had experienced before. Back in his hospital bed, the quiet brother listened to the words, the calm and measured instructions, the careful explanations. Something shifted in him as he realized that his twin was there, taking control, ensuring that everything would be done correctly. Relief and gratitude mixed with lingering fear. He felt protected, not just by circumstance, but by the unwavering presence of someone who loved him beyond reason. Outside, the town slowly began to comprehend the situation. Rumors spread, neighbors talked, some in relief, some in shock. The story of mistaken identity rippled through the streets, leaving a mix of emotions, sympathy, guilt, concern. People began to understand that this was more than a simple incident. It was a reminder that even in a calm and predictable town, life could turn unexpectedly, and human lives could hang on small mistakes. The quiet brother began to regain a sense of composure, encouraged by his twin's calm control. He remembered again the bond that had defined their lives, the childhood games, the shared secrets, the promises to always protect each other. Those memories became a source of strength, allowing him to breathe more easily and accept the support being given. He realized that he was not alone, that his brother had arrived not just as a relative, but as a guardian, a protector, someone who would not allow harm to come to him. Without a fight, the soldier spent the next few hours coordinating with authorities, checking details and making sure that no further mistakes would occur. He maintained a careful balance of assertiveness and calm, ensuring that everyone understood the reality of the situation without creating additional conflict. His military training had taught him patience as much as precision, and now he applied it fully. Every step was calculated, every decision measured, all with the goal of securing his brother's safety. As evening approached, the hospital quieted down. The quiet brother rested, exhausted from the emotional turmoil of the day. The soldier remained vigilant, monitoring the situation, prepared to act if necessary. They shared a moment of silence, sitting together, the room filled with unspoken understanding. No words were needed. They had faced fear, confusion, and the unknown. Yet they were together, and that alone provided a profound sense of relief. Night fell over the town, the streets emptying, as the world outside moved on, unaware of the day's events. Inside the hospital, the two brothers reflected silently. One had lived an ordinary life dedicated to helping others in simple ways, while the other had trained for extraordinary challenges. Yet today, the ordinary and the extraordinary had collided. And it had been the bond between them that had carried them through. It was a reminder that strength was not just measured in skill or courage, but in loyalty, love, and the willingness to stand by someone no matter what. By the time the quiet brother finally drifted to sleep, he felt safer than he had in hours, reassured by the presence of his twin. The soldier remained alert, but even he allowed himself a brief moment of rest, knowing that for now, the immediate danger had passed. The day had been a lesson in human complexity, in the unpredictability of life, and in the extraordinary power of family. And while tomorrow would bring its own challenges, the events of today had shown that even in confusion and fear, courage, love, and dedication could guide the way. The soldier's journey home had been tense and focused, each moment calculated with military precision. The plane's engines roared, passengers unaware of the urgency that filled one of the seats. He had received the call hours earlier, and every second since had been spent mentally preparing for what he would find. This was not a mission dictated by orders or strategy alone. It was personal. It involved family, trust, and the bond he shared with his twin. Every scenario, every possible outcome was running through his mind as he sat quietly, his face calm, but his eyes sharp. He thought back to the times they had spent together as children, the countless days of laughter, the secret hiding places, the adventures that required courage and creativity. Those memories were more than nostalgia. They were a reminder of why he had to act quickly and decisively. He knew that even the most disciplined response from authorities could falter when human error intervened, and he had to be ready to guide events toward the right outcome. By the time the plane touched down, the city's lights were glowing softly, reflecting on the wet streets from a recent rain. He moved through the airport with the fluidity of someone used to high-pressure situations, scanning the environment, noting the exits, and mentally mapping the quickest path to his brother. People passed him, oblivious to the urgency, while he kept a steady pace, determined not to waste a single moment. Upon arriving in town, he immediately headed to the hospital. Each step carried a sense of purpose, but he did not rush unnecessarily. Control and observation were just as important as speed. When he reached the building, he could sense the tension in the air. Staff moved quickly, trying to maintain order in a situation that had become complex due to confusion and miscommunication earlier in the day. He introduced himself calmly, explaining his relationship to the patient and requested detailed updates. His demeanor left no room for doubt. He was focused, composed, and unyielding in his determination to understand everything fully inside the hospital. The quiet brother lay in a bed, still shaken but physically unharmed. His mind was a swirl of questions, confusion, and relief. When he saw his twin enter, there was an immediate recognition, a sense of safety that washed over him. His body relaxed slightly, even after the strain of the day. He had always known that his brother had strength, but seeing it now in person gave him a profound reassurance. Words were not immediately necessary. The presence alone spoke volumes. The soldier moved efficiently, speaking with nurses and doctors, asking precise questions about his brother's condition, about what had happened, and about any procedures or reports filed. Every detail mattered, and he absorbed the information quickly, storing it in his mind as he formulated the next steps. It was not just about understanding what went wrong. It was about ensuring that such a mistake would not repeat itself, that his brother would be safe from further harm. While gathering information, he also contacted local authorities. His tone was firm but respectful, emphasizing cooperation and clarity. He provided the correct identification details, explained the misunderstanding, and offered to assist in clarifying the sequence of events. His military training made him an effective communicator, even under stress, able to convey authority without aggression. Slowly, the situation began to shift, and those involved recognized the reality. The man in the hospital was not the suspect. Throughout this process, the quiet brother observed, his awe growing. He saw a side of his twin that was usually hidden behind the strict discipline and control demanded by military life. Here, the soldier was protective, strategic, and entirely focused on family. There was no pretense, no unnecessary bravado. He moved with precision, but with a deep care that was unmistakable. For the quiet brother, this was a moment of understanding the depths of their bond. It gave him strength. Meanwhile, the soldier began piecing together the larger picture. He spoke with neighbors who had witnessed the initial confusion, collected statements, and reviewed the limited footage from nearby cameras. Each element helped him understand how the mistaken identity had occurred. He remained calm, patient, and meticulous, traits honed from years of missions where errors could be fatal. Now, those same skills were being applied in a civilian context. To protect his brother and prevent further mistakes. As the evening progressed, the soldier took time to sit beside his twin's bed. He did not need to speak immediately. The quiet brother, exhausted by fear and the adrenaline of the day, leaned back, watching his twin with a mixture of relief and admiration. There was a deep understanding between them, formed from years of shared experiences, even if those experiences had diverged into vastly different paths. Silence spoke as loudly as words, communicating trust, care, and an unspoken promise that he would ensure his brother's safety. The soldier continued working quietly, coordinating with hospital staff to secure any additional precautions needed, verifying reports, and ensuring the situation was fully documented. His presence reassured everyone in the room, creating a sense of order and calm amidst the chaos. The quiet brother gradually began to relax, his fear easing as he realized that the man who had always been his partner in childhood adventures was now his protector in the real world. The dynamic had shifted, but the bond remained unbroken. Outside the hospital, town's residents had begun to hear fragments of the story. Confusion had given way to concern, and slowly, people began to understand the human side of the event. Conversations circulated about mistaken identity, about the tension that had escalated, and about the family caught in the middle. There was empathy, curiosity, and a growing recognition that ordinary lives could be unexpectedly complicated. Even in the calmest towns, back inside, the soldier made careful decisions about next steps. He ensured that his brother would receive proper rest and support, while also beginning to communicate with law enforcement to clarify and correct the official records. He was thorough, leaving no room for ambiguity. Every conversation, every instruction, was delivered with clarity, patience, and authority. The quiet brother watched, amazed at the level of control and expertise, realizing that the man sitting beside him was capable of extraordinary measures when necessary. As night settled, the soldier allowed himself a brief pause. He had navigated a complex situation with precision, ensured his brother's safety, and began to restore order. Even in moments of rest, his mind was active, reviewing timelines, anticipating potential complications, and ensuring that no detail had been overlooked. The quiet brother slept lightly, comforted by the protective presence of his twin. Knowing that for the first time in hours, he was truly safe, the soldier reflected on the day's events. Considering how quickly life could change and how easily mistakes could escalate, he realized that even the simplest human errors could create serious consequences, and that the most important tools were awareness, patience, and decisive action. He had applied his military training to a personal crisis, and the outcome, though not without stress, had been controlled through care, focus, and determination. Throughout the night, the soldier remained vigilant, sitting beside his brother, monitoring the situation, and ready to respond if needed. He did not need to speak constantly. The quiet brother drew reassurance from the presence alone. The bond between them, forged through childhood experiences and strengthened by years of mutual trust, had carried them through yet another challenge. It was a reminder that courage, loyalty, and love were as important in everyday life as they were on any battlefield. The quiet brother, in moments of rest, reflected on his twin's presence. He remembered how differently their lives had unfolded, one choosing a quiet path, the other facing extraordinary risks, and yet their connection had remained unshaken. He realized that true strength was not just about training or skill, but about the willingness to act for the people who mattered most. That realization brought a sense of peace amidst lingering tension. By morning, the situation had stabilized. The quiet brother was no longer under immediate threat, and the authorities had corrected the records. The soldier, though tired, had ensured that everything was in order and that his brother was fully safe. He remained attentive, offering guidance, support, and reassurance. Embodying the role of protector with both calmness and strength, the quiet brother now felt a renewed sense of security, knowing that, no matter what, he had someone who would act decisively to keep him safe. As the day began anew, both brothers shared a quiet understanding. The morning that had started like any other had transformed into an extraordinary test of human resilience, trust, and loyalty. They had faced confusion, fear, and misjudgment together, and had emerged stronger. The soldier's return, his vigilance, and his unwavering support had turned a potentially dangerous situation into one of safety and clarity. The quiet brother watched his twin prepare for the day, realizing that the man who had spent years in extraordinary circumstances was capable of incredible calm and control when facing personal challenges. The bond between them, unspoken yet unbreakable, had been tested and proven. They were twins, partners, and allies in life, and no misunderstanding, no mistake could sever the connection they shared. Their story, still unfolding, had shown that courage and love were inseparable, and that sometimes the greatest heroism came not from missions abroad, but from protecting those closest to home. By the time the fourth day of this ordeal began, the soldier had taken full control of the situation. His mind was focused and precise, like a machine finely tuned over years of rigorous training, yet it carried the human element of deep care and love for his brother. The quiet brother had slowly started to regain his strength, both physically and emotionally, but he remained shaken by the events of the previous days. The soldier knew that the healing process would require more than medical attention. It needed understanding, reassurance, and protection. He started the day early, reviewing every detail from the past days. Witness statements, camera footage, reports, and conversations all were analyzed carefully. He identified inconsistencies and small oversights that had contributed to the initial mistake. While others might have dismissed them, he knew that in human situations, tiny details often made the difference between misunderstanding and clarity. His focus was to ensure that nothing like this would ever threaten his brother again. The soldier began visiting the local authorities to clarify information. He did not argue or raise his voice, but his presence commanded attention. Every conversation was measured, deliberate, and factual. He explained the correct sequence of events, pointing out errors, and offered constructive guidance on how the situation could have been handled differently. His goal was not to punish but to correct. He wanted accountability. Yes, but more than that, he wanted to ensure safety and fairness for everyone involved. The quiet brother watched, both impressed and comforted. He had always known his twin was capable, but seeing him in action in such a civilian context revealed a side of him that was extraordinary in its subtlety. The soldier's power lay not in aggression, but in precision, calmness, and the ability to influence outcomes without unnecessary force. Watching this unfold gave the quiet brother a sense of security he had never experienced before. Throughout the day, the soldier also visited neighbors who had witnessed the initial incident. He listened patiently to their accounts, asked clarifying questions, and gently corrected misunderstandings. His demeanor was firm but approachable. People who had been frightened or confused began to see the truth. Realizing that the quiet brother had been caught up in a misunderstanding entirely beyond his control, the soldier's approach diffused. Tension, turning suspicion into understanding, fear into empathy. While working on clarifying the events, the soldier noticed the emotional toll on his brother. Though the physical injuries were minor, the psychological strain was more significant. The quiet brother had experienced fear, confusion, and the unsettling feeling of being powerless. Recognizing this, the soldier took time to sit with him, offering quiet reassurance, listening to his concerns and validating his feelings. It was a gentle but effective form of support, something the quiet brother appreciated deeply as the day progressed. The soldier focused on the larger picture. The real suspect had not yet been fully identified, and he understood that the ongoing risk could still pose problems for his brother. Using his analytical skills, he began piecing together information that could lead to the correct identification. He collaborated with authorities, reviewing timelines, cross-referencing details, and considering every possibility. His experience in the field had taught him to think several steps ahead. Now he applied those same principles to ensure the right outcome. The quiet brother, meanwhile, was recovering his composure. The sense of fear that had dominated his days was slowly replaced by gratitude and admiration. He realized how much his life had been protected not just by circumstance, but by deliberate and thoughtful action. He had been helpless in the initial moments, but seeing his twin navigate every complication with skill and patience gave him a renewed sense of safety. The bond they shared became more tangible, more immediate, in ways words could not fully express. Late in the afternoon, the soldier received updates from the police about ongoing investigations. Some details were missing, and certain assumptions needed correction. He worked tirelessly to provide clarification, offering suggestions and advice that were practical and actionable. He also ensured that all communication was clear, leaving no room for misinterpretation. His strategic thinking and methodical approach were paying off. The authorities began to see the situation more clearly, realizing that the initial mistake had been purely circumstantial, and that the quiet brother had no involvement in the events that had triggered the confusion. While the procedural aspects were being handled, the soldier also focused on ensuring his brother's emotional recovery. He spoke about their childhood, shared stories, and gently reminded him of the times they had overcome challenges together. Laughter, quiet and sincere, began to fill the hospital room again. The quiet brother felt a warmth that had been missing since the incident began. These small moments of connection were as important as the official clarifications and corrections, for they reminded him that he was not alone and that his brother would always protect him. The soldier also met with neighbors who had been involved in the initial confusion. He patiently explained the misunderstanding, offering context and clarity. People began to feel a sense of relief and understanding. Misunderstandings that had caused fear and tension were gradually being replaced by empathy and awareness. The quiet brother watched this unfold, felt gratitude for the calm and careful manner in which his twin navigated the situation. Evening approached, and the soldier made final checks to ensure that all records and statements were accurate. He had confirmed the correct suspect's identity, corrected all reports, ensured that proper procedures were followed moving forward. His work was not done for the day, but he could now see a clear path to resolution. The immediate danger to his brother had been removed, and the situation was under control. The quiet brother, now more relaxed, reflected on the events of the past days. He thought about how easily misunderstandings could escalate, how human error could create complex situations, and how much he had relied on his brother's presence and decisiveness. He realized that true protection was not only about physical safety, but also about clarity, understanding, and emotional support. His twin had provided all of these in abundance. As night fell, Soldier remained vigilant, but allowed himself moments of calm. He had guided the situation through chaos, ensured his brother's safety, and started the process of emotional healing. He remained by his brother's side, offering support, reassurance, and readiness to act if needed. The quiet brother now slept more peacefully, comforted by the unwavering presence of someone who understood the full gravity of the situation and had acted decisively to safeguard him. The day had been long, filled with investigation, clarification, and emotional care. The soldier had demonstrated that protecting someone he loved was not just about immediate action, but also about patience, understanding, and careful planning. The quiet brother now felt the depth of that protection and realized the extraordinary capabilities of the person he had always known as his twin by the end of the fourth day. The situation had shifted from confusion and fear to clarity and safety. The quiet brother was recovering physically and emotionally. The soldier had ensured that all records were corrected, all misunderstandings addressed, and all precautions taken. The bond between the brothers had been tested, reinforced, and strengthened. They were ready to face the coming days together, knowing that their connection, trust, and love were more powerful than any misunderstanding or mistake that could come their way. The night passed quietly, calm settling over the town and the hospital. The quiet brother slept with a newfound sense of security, knowing that his protector was beside him. The soldier remained vigilant, aware that even in calm moments, readiness was essential. They had navigated extraordinary circumstances together, emerging stronger and more united. The events of these days had proven that courage, patience, love, and determination were the greatest tools a person could possess, and that even ordinary people, when guided by loyalty and care, could face the most challenging situations successfully. The fifth day began with a sense of calm that had been absent for far too long. The quiet brother was awake earlier than usual, but the weight of fear that had been pressing on him for days was beginning to lift. He looked at his twin, who was sitting nearby, reviewing notes, and making sure every detail from the past week was accounted for. There was an unspoken understanding between them. The ordeal was nearly over. They could finally breathe. The soldier had spent the night ensuring that the authorities had corrected all reports and that any miscommunication regarding the incident was fully resolved. He had made contact with witnesses, neighbors, and anyone involved in the initial confusion to clarify events. He wanted the town to understand that his brother had been mistakenly identified, and that the true circumstances had now been uncovered. He moved with care, knowing that words and actions would have lasting impacts. As morning sunlight streamed through the hospital windows, the quiet brother felt a renewed sense of hope. He realized that the worst was behind him, but he also knew that he had been forever changed by the experience. Fear, confusion, and helplessness had been replaced with gratitude and admiration. He was proud of his brother, of the way he had handled everything with such calm precision, yet with deep compassion. The soldier began the day by walking through the hospital, checking on the quiet brother's comfort and reviewing the final steps that needed to be taken for resolution. He spoke with hospital staff, ensuring that no lingering concerns remained and that his brother would continue to receive support as needed. Every interaction was precise and clear, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The quiet brother watched, feeling reassured by the methodical approach and the steadfast care of his twin. Later in the morning, the authorities reached out to issue an official apology. It was formal, but it carried weight, acknowledging the mistake and recognizing the stress and confusion it had caused. The soldier accepted it calmly, appreciating the effort to make things right, while also ensuring that lessons would be learned to prevent similar situations in the future. His focus was always on protection, clarity, and resolution, and he made sure that the town understood the human side of the story. The quiet brother was beginning to move around the hospital more comfortably, taking short walks in the corridor, feeling the support of both medical staff and his twin. He reflected on the events of the past days, on how quickly life could change, and on the importance of being vigilant but calm. He understood that fear could escalate situations, but so could care, focus, and careful action. His brother had shown all of these qualities in abundance, and the quiet brother felt a sense of deep appreciation that words could hardly express throughout the day. The soldier continued coordinating with the authorities to finalize all records and statements. He was patient, clear, and deliberate, ensuring that every piece of information reflected the truth. Mistakes had happened, but now clarity was restored. The quiet brother observed, learning the value of precision, strategy, thoughtful communication, and resolving conflicts. He understood that the experience had been challenging, but it had also taught lessons about trust, loyalty, and family. As afternoon approached, the soldier took time to sit quietly with his brother, sharing stories and recalling childhood memories. Laughter began to fill the room again, gentle and healing. The quiet brother felt the tension of the past days slowly melt away, replaced by a sense of connection and relief. He realized that even though their lives had taken very different paths, the bond they shared remained as strong as ever. That bond had been tested, and it had held. Neighbors and friends began to visit, checking on the quiet brother and expressing their concern and relief. The soldier spoke calmly to everyone, providing clarity and ensuring that misunderstandings were addressed. People were grateful, not just for the resolution, but for the calm and humane way the situation had been handled. The quiet brother felt surrounded by support, realizing that even in moments of confusion and fear, kindness, understanding, and human connection could prevail. By late afternoon, the quiet brother was feeling more like himself. He could move freely, talk comfortably, and laugh without the tension that had weighed on him. The soldier remained vigilant, but allowed moments of calm to settle in. He understood that the healing process was ongoing, both emotionally and mentally. They had navigated extraordinary circumstances together, and now they could focus on rebuilding a sense of normalcy. As evening approached, the soldier ensured that all final steps were in place. He confirmed that the correct suspect had been identified and apprehended, that all reports were accurate, and that any lingering concerns among authorities or neighbors were addressed. The quiet brother watched, feeling a profound sense of security. His twin had not only protected him physically, but it also guided the entire situation toward justice and clarity. That night, the two brothers sat together quietly. The quiet brother felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and love. He realized that even though he had lived an ordinary life, he had someone extraordinary watching over him. The soldier reflected as well, thinking about how his training and experience had been applied not just in the field, but to protect the person he cared about most. It was a different kind of mission, but no less important. They spoke about the past days, recounting moments of fear, confusion, and eventual clarity. There was laughter, reflection, and shared understanding. The quiet brother expressed his gratitude, not just for the protection, but for the way his twin had handled everything with calmness, strategy, and care. The soldier, in turn, reminded him that their bond had always been strong and that this experience only reinforced it. The night passed peacefully. The quiet brother slept soundly, comforted by the knowledge that he was safe and that his twin was nearby. The soldier remained watchful, ready to act if necessary, but also allowing the calm to settle in. The events of the past days had been intense, but they had emerged stronger, united, and more aware of the importance of care, vigilance, and family. By the next morning, a sense of normalcy began to return. The quiet brother felt rejuvenated, both physically and emotionally. The soldier continued to support him, ensuring that any remaining concerns were addressed. They shared a meal together, simple and comforting, symbolizing the return to routine and the small joys of everyday life. It was a quiet celebration of survival, understanding, familial love. Throughout the day, the soldier also made sure that the town and authorities were fully informed. Clarity and resolution had been achieved, mistakes corrected, and lessons learned. The quiet brother felt a deep sense of relief, knowing that the situation had been handled responsibly, thoughtfully, and with care. He also realized that his brother's presence had been the key to restoring order and security in the following hours. They reflected on the events, understanding the fragility of life and the importance of being vigilant yet compassionate. The quiet brother knew that fear could escalate situations, but so could careful action and unwavering care. The soldier had demonstrated both, and the experience had left an indelible impression on both of them. As the day ended, the brothers felt a renewed connection, stronger than ever. They had faced confusion, fear, and uncertainty together and had emerged with clarity, safety, and understanding. The soldier had fulfilled the role of protector, guide, and caregiver, while the quiet brother had learned the value of trust, resilience, and family bonds. They knew that life could change in an instant, but the bond between them was unbreakable. The final moments of the day were quiet but meaningful. The quiet brother looked at his twin, feeling a deep sense of love, gratitude, and reassurance. The soldier sat beside him, calm, vigilant, and satisfied that the mission of protection was complete. Together they had navigated extraordinary circumstances, and together they had emerged stronger, more united, and ready to face whatever challenges might come next. In the end, The quiet town had returned to its peaceful rhythm. But the story of these two brothers left a lasting impression. It was a story of trust, courage, family, and the extraordinary lengths one would go to protect the ones they loved. And though the days had been filled with confusion and tension, the conclusion was one of healing, understanding, unbreakable bonds that would carry them through the rest of their lives.